Today we're going to turn this into this. Hey guys, John Judd here. Today we're going to talk about thickening up your chords. Thickening, I'm almost making it sound like it was a production word in terms of like compression or something like that, but that's not what it is. We're going to take basic chord structures and try to add notes and see what we come up with sound-wise. So for us to continue this discussion, there's a little bit of a prerequisite of theory knowledge. I'm going to go over it right now. I'll leave a time marker in the video to skip to if you happen to already be familiar with this material. The prerequisite knowledge is about scale degrees. We're going to talk about it in C major because C major, it's all the white notes on the piano and probably the most common thing to think of when you're thinking about theory. So here's how it works. We have a C major scale right here from C to C. Those particular notes get numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1 and 8 being the same note, just an octave apart. So you know what that sounds like? Beautiful. So you've heard that a million times. So the thing that you need to know is that as we go through our scale, we have 1 to 8, we have a 9, an 11, and a 13. 10 and 12, they exist, but they don't really get a lot of weight in terms of theory. And also 8, that won't be a thing. The scale degrees we really need to know about are 1 through 7, 9, 11, 13. That said, we're going to move on. So I have a chord progression here. The chord progression is A minor, F, D minor, E. And all of these chords are now in root position. If you picked out these chords and you just went to your piano and played them in the most basic position with the root on the bottom, that's what root position is. Here's what that sounds like. Nothing bad about that. Now what I've done here, I've written tight voice leading. Voice leading means you're tightening up the chords a little bit so we have the most common tones and the least movement. In classic theory, that is the strongest sounding kind of chord movement. So we started with A minor. Root position is A, C, E. So that's actually what we have. Now the next chord is F, and it should be spelled F, A, C. In this instance, now we have A, C, F. We've moved this bottom note up top, and it's going to facilitate it sounding a little different. The next chord is D minor. That is no longer in root position either. We're spelling it A, D, F. Over here, we have E. What was the bottom note? E, we've moved to the top. So here's what a tight voice leading sounds like. So once again, here's root position. A little bit of a tighter voice leading. Who knows? Might not be better, might just be different. And especially if you're using synths that happen to have like octave doubling, the voice leading might not matter in some instances. But we have a very traditional electric piano sound. This is actually native to FL Studio, and it doesn't have any doublings. Now what I've done, I've doubled the root an octave lower. Normally I do that with a different instrument, but just for the sake of simplicity, here we go. Sounds a little more fat. In this instance here, now we're going to add sevenths. Now the seventh on the first chord, A minor, the notes in A minor are A, C, E. To add a seventh, we're going to add a G, A, C, E, G. On F, we're going to add a seventh. F is F, A, C, and this will now be F, A, C, E. D minor will be D, F, A, and then we're going to mutate that into D, F, A, C. E E, G sharp, B, and we're going to turn that into E, G sharp, B, D. So now in this previous example, we had some octave doublings, like we had the root down here. On the F chord and the D chord, I've removed the root from the upper part of the voicing and just left it in the bass. Here's what this sounds like. A little different. Here's the previous one with tight voice leading and the bass. Once more with an added seventh. Sounds pretty sweet. I might just add this little thought. Music is about tension and release and also contrast. So if you have all the chords sounding special with sevenths or other scale degrees, none of them will sound special. So going back and forth between some of these might be a good idea. Now what I've done on this one is I've added a ninth, and I had to remove some conflicts. The ninth on the A minor is a B. The ninth on the F is a G. The ninth on the D minor is an E. The ninth on the E is actually an F, if we're to stay in key somewhat. In general, we're in the key of A minor. E is not fitting into A natural minor because of its G sharp. So E is, in general, a chord that fits into A harmonic minor, but E has a big push back to A minor. That said, now we've added ninths, and I was careful about conflicts. I think the only conflict I really ran into here was on the D minor, and the F that's in the D minor would conflict. Conflict could be a strong word, but the F and E in the D minor, had the F been an octave higher right there, they would have rubbed a little bit too much, I think. I'd be okay with that sound, but in general, it probably might not have been preferable. Okay, here's ninths. So at the end, if you're wondering what I did with the E, it's actually a flat 9 to stay in the key. So I did an F natural and I brought it down to an E, which makes this last chord not a ninth chord. It's actually just a seventh chord. This is an E7 flat 9 chord. Let's go back a moment. I'm going to play the sevenths and the ninths, and we'll see how those compare. Here's the sevenths. Ninths. A little bit more rich. On the next one, I altered the voicings a little bit. So for example, if we had this B in the ninths, I brought the B down and it's actually sitting right next to C here. So this could be an interesting little conflict, but to my ear, it actually sounded okay. I think everything else in the voicings is exactly the same. I don't think I changed anything. I see something down here. I added an extra C in the F chord because I think it just sounded a little more fat to me. So here's the ninth with a little bit altered voicings. Back to the ninths, the regular, more stacked voicings. The voicings I altered. Now I added an 11th on some of them. Let's go up the scale again. On A minor, we have A, C, E, the 7th is G, the 9th is B, and the 11th is D. So I've added a D right there. And you can see you have 3 notes ramming right against each other. On your F chord, your 11th, your spelling with an 11th would be F, A, C, or the 1, 3, 5. E is the 7th, G is the 9th, and B is actually the sharp 11. Keep in mind, the more extensions and stuff we add, the more jazz-ish this kind of thing is going to sound. So it depends on what sound you're going for. The extensions may or may not fit. On D minor, our root 3rd, 5th, we have D, F, A. The 7th is C, 9th is E, and the 11th is G. So we've added that. On E7, I did not add an 11th. And the reason is that an 11th would be an A. If we added an A, it would conflict with the 3rd of the chord, which is a G sharp. You could add the 11th. You just have to do something with the G sharp, move it up to A or subtract it. So here's what some added 11ths sound like. Here's a previous 9th. Elevenths. With the 11th, it's pretty thick. Sounds pretty strong and full. So once again, our root position. Elevenths. Okay, so I hope that helped you thicken up your chords. Have a nice day. Thickening up your chords, 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 thickening up your chords,